Welcome, folks, to our City Matters. Today we have the Chair of New Hampshire Families for Education, Doris Hohensee. New Hampshire Families for Education has been organized and has been operating in the state for several years, and is an advocacy for parents and for students, and it's a really good resource to go to for more information on legislation with the state, on happenings and different things that are going on with education. New Hampshire Families for Education website.org, if you'd like to go there to find out more about what New Hampshire Families does. Thank you, Doris, for coming today.
Well, thank you for inviting me. Yeah, New Hampshire Families for Education started in 2010.
210, I just couldn't remember.
And we've been following and tracking legislation. Every year there's a whole new batch of, there's 1,000 bills usually, and we try to sift through them, follow what the legislators are doing, and see who supports local control, which is parents and teachers.
Exactly. So you're battling the feds, we might say?
We're protecting local control. The feds seem to be attacking local control. We didn't design our organization to fight them. We designed to protect local control.
Right. Well, some of the issues are, what is it, the Smarter Balance Assessment results. We have not received them.
We were supposed to get those in a matter of weeks, and we haven't. They're supposed to be so much faster than the kneecaps. But they're calling them preliminary. They don't expect them to change. They don't expect the cut scores to change. So they've got these scores. Some districts are handing them out and sending them home.
Oh, really?
But Nashua's not.
Manchester's not. So what's the
delay?
delay?
It says that it's preliminary, so you don't have the right to know. I looked in the policies in Nashua. The board is supposed to work with the superintendent on communicating that information to the public on the results. But the superintendent says they're preliminary, so he doesn't have to share them with anybody till after the election in November.
Oh, really?
So what they're doing, it's kind of data cleaning. They're looking at the data, not the scores or anything, but this student is in this class. Did they graduate? Are they held back? Are they in this district? Are they in that district? To make sure that we attribute the scores to the right schools, teachers, and grades. Now, why does it take till November? Couldn't they have been doing that before they got the scores back? I have no idea, but we're at a standstill right now. We can't get the information, and we're supposed to wait till middle of November. This is how we get our scores back 7 months later instead of weeks.
Wasn't the results of Smarter Balance supposed to drive instruction?
Inform instruction.
Inform instruction.
Yes, it's supposed. I don't know what it's informing now. But
No.
I think they're trying to work on how to best to spin the results.
Oh, my goodness.
So I have no idea if they were proud of what happened or they thought they were good results. You'd think they'd be out there by now and they'd be saying, look how wonderful this project is, because it's completely untested. There's no baseline. This is the baseline, and apparently it's pretty poor.
Well, that will bring more money to districts.
No, this is the baseline, and then next year we have a comparison, so whether we do better or worse, that will bring money to districts
Okay.
or send teachers packing because
Oh, yeah.
they have to be effective. If they're ineffective, they need to improve or leave. This is the method that the feds are coming in and getting between the districts and their contracts. Because teachers have contracts, but this sort of supersedes it. We've now got an evaluation process that takes into account these tests that are completely unverified, not validated by anything, and somehow they're part of the rubrics.
And the teacher's evaluation is dependent on those tests.
Right.
Why aren't they protesting?
Teachers, they can't. They're pretty much, if they speak up, they wake the dragon.
I think they're content that it's only 20% of their evaluation is what the test results
I don't know.
come in as.
But I don't think they have a big voice. I think this is top-down education where
Mm.
they're not getting the voice they should. So
Well, we'll see. I'm sure the union leader has a right to know request into the state to get
a
these
lot
results.
of people do. I put one in. It didn't reap much rewards. I put it in for the communications between the commissioner and my district, so I understand what they told the district and what the district's saying to me. I don't agree with it, but there is a little statute to say if the data is preliminary, then we don't have access to it under right to know. But it's not preliminary. Those scores will not change. Just the attribution of what grade or what teacher is responsible, what school, what district, that's the only thing. And it takes them that many months to clean it up.
Clean up the
Why
data.
are we doing this online? We might as well do it on index cards.
So you're still of the opinion that parents should refuse the Smarter Balance assessment in the spring again? They're going to be doing it in the spring again, correct?
I don't see why a parent would do it. It's completely, you're asking your kid to be a guinea pig. If the test is not validated, your kid will do better or worse on a test that they don't really know is effective for indicating what it's supposed to be measuring. And then there's a lot of data mining on it, and you don't have control as a parent. Once your child takes it and gives and answers those questions, a lot of that data goes and never comes back.
Right to the feds, right to the Department of Labor, and
there's no privacy.
starting in 3rd grade.
And if it was academic, you wouldn't mind. Okay, they know I can read, I can write, I can spell, but they're asking a lot of behavioral questions, and that's where... And we can't even in the public see them. That's one of the big reasons we want them released. We want to see just how intrusive these questions are, because when the middle school in Fairgrounds in Nashua, they had a test, the teachers and the principal said that they were more psychological than academic. So why are we measuring that? Why is not academics at the forefront?
And then the other thing was that some students are more savvy with computers, more knowledgeable with how to manage.
Well, we could do paper and pencil for another year. 2 years, they said that they would be doing.
Well, they certainly don't
allowing
want paper and pencil. They don't want the paper and pencil.
At least 2 districts in New Hampshire did paper and pencil, and their scores didn't come back till the end of August. They were a little slower because they had to grade paper.
So basically, those students who do not have computers at home, haven't been exposed to computers for very long, will do generally worse on the test because of computer skills.
It could be, but you have to also keep in mind that a lot of the people that create these computers and the software, these developers, my husband works in that field, they do not put their children in schools that have early exposure to computers because they know it's not good for the children. They should interact with other human beings,
Right.
not get lost in the world of computers, which is very addictive. So you go to Silicon Valley, they have their kids in private schools that don't have this.
High tech,
you
all
look
this
at-
technology.
You look at Hassan. She sent her kids to Phil Exeter. There's no Common Core there. You look at Obama. He sent his to the Friends Academy or something. There's no Common Core there. Arnie Duncan, no Common Core for his kids. So all these people that promote it don't live by example. Don't say, hey, it's great for my kid. So why would you do it for your kid? I'd hold back and wait.
Right, so the refusal letters are on different Facebook pages.
You don't actually need a letter. It is your inherent right to do that as a parent, to direct the education of your child. The form may be helpful.
It's
But
informing.
if you don't have one, don't worry about it. Just refuse.
Write a piece of paper that says
Just say, I refuse to allow my child to participate. Sign it, date it, send it in.
Okay.
And that bill that the governor vetoed and we couldn't override is going back into the legislature.
Okay, you
So-
want to talk about those
So,
bills?
yes, she will have a second chance. J.R. Hole, Representative Hole from Dumbarton, is putting that back in. It's LSR 2436, and he's putting it back in. It was his bill last year that got vetoed. He's also putting in a
What
bill.
was that? What does it say exactly again?
It's the same language as last year because it passed the legislature, so he can resubmit it.
That parents can...
That allows parents to opt out.
Okay.
It doesn't use the word refuse, which at the district level they're saying if you opt out, you're not allowed. But if you refuse, you are allowed. Those are just words. You are allowed to direct the education of your kid, and that means these are harmful in your mind. Their child shouldn't take them. So, it's semantics. It also has a bill in relative to the definition of educational competencies. Now, this is very important because when they came in 2005 and they put in competencies, they said, and this is the purpose from RSA 193H1A, competency-based strategy provides flexibility in the way credit can be earned. It wasn't supposed to be revolutionary, transforming our whole educational system, which it has become. That was not the purpose that our state legislature okayed. They okayed flexibility.
They got rid of the Carnegie units.
Not a straitjacket saying all kids now have to use this. That is not what the legislature passed.
Oh, boy.
So, excuse me, he's got a bill in there that will restore that flexibility and talk about competencies instead of individual. It should be individual subjects. Whether if you want to be competent in a subject, it should be arithmetic. Are you competent in arithmetic? And not arithmetic, writing, social studies all at once. So this would restore it to a single academic domain. So if you won't have this whole competency puts in place a mechanism that is very dangerous in the sense that it can be used for many purposes. I mean, you should be able to go in, especially if you're in a primary grade. I'm great at arithmetic. See, I came home. I've got a good grade, whether it's competency-based grading or whatever. But I am good at arithmetic, not I failed at arithmetic because I can't print and I can't explain in writing. And that's...
Oh, they combine the domains
Well,
in the
remember,
subject.
in math, what they do, they say,
Oh.
explain your answer.
In math, right. That's
So
using
they,
another... Right.
what they're doing with even with the standards is they're confusing the disciplines. If you have a subject, let's stick to the subject. If
So you
wanna-
might know math, but you can't explain the answer because maybe you're Hispanic and you haven't learned the language yet.
But you can do 2 + 2 is 4, and
Right.
if you've got 2 + 2 is 4, you should be marked correct.
So
Not,
they'll fail the student for not being able to explain in mathematics? That's what's
so
happening.
we need to simplify things. If they want to put in a subject that's polyglot, that's, you go into this and you're going to do all subjects at once, fine. Let's be honest about it. Tell the parent that's what the kid's signing up for. But if you sign up for history, it should be history. You sign up for math, it should be, your arithmetic. It shouldn't be your language skills at the same time. It's nice to help the child when they're explaining and writing, but the grade shouldn't be dependent on his language skills. It should be his arithmetic skills. And this will just sort of narrowly focus the subjects back to where they were.
Wow.
Because otherwise you could pass reading, and it's just because, well, you can get up there and make presentations, but you can't sit down and read. I mean, that's how broad this thing could get. So we need to focus on what we're instructing.
Well, isn't the goal to have more students graduate, get the graduation rate up, or the pass rate up to the next
I
grade?
don't know, because they talk about kids that are 3 years behind in reading. How can you be 3 years behind in reading? How did you get 3 years ahead to be 3 years behind at the same time? Something's failing. I don't know.
I know parents need to be aware of what's happening with their students' grades.
And maybe because the subjects aren't narrowly defined, they think, oh, they're passing reading when they're not. They're passing public speaking or something else, or artistic projects, or, things that they do as a group, which is not reading.
Wow. Another LSR?
There's a whole bunch. There's one that I'm interested in, relative to the approval of proposed rules by policy committee. Currently, they go to a joint legislative committee on administrative rules. Now, this is for all agencies, whether it's education, labor, motor vehicle, everything. So you've got this one committee of 20 or so people, half the Senate, half the House, or sort of some combination therein. How are they supposed to be experts on everything, to look at all the little fine detail, to know that the Education Committee is taking this little thing on competencies and exploding it to something that they didn't have authority to implement? So I'm hoping that this will be something that directs it back to the committee that has the expertise, because right now the GELCAR committee doesn't have the authority to say no. They just can put an objection on file, and no matter what, it goes through. So somehow we need a little bit more
Oversight.
oversight on the approval of rules.
Right.
It's a broken process, as far as I'm concerned.
So all this is coming down from the New Hampshire DOE, who's an agent, in my opinion, an agent for the feds. Is that?
85% of their funding comes from the federal government, so they're going to be more inclined to listen to what the federal government says to get that money flowing, to get the next grant, to expand their department. Not to the state that only supports 15% of their department. It's a real problem where their loyalty is. And it's not playing out well. At least
Wow.
not for parents and students.
How are the students feeling about it? I mean, do you get calls from parents, and how are the students faring with this whole mess?
The high school students in particular are not too happy with the competency-based grading because they've got 12 years of grade school, and all of a sudden at the last minute when they're applying to college, they're taking and flipping the whole grading system. It's a big upheaval, and they're worried that, how will the colleges respond? They're very nervous, and they're objecting on many levels. They're the ones that objected to the Smarter Balance in big numbers. More than half of the high schools.
The
students.
11th graders. The 11th graders, most of them in Manchester didn't take the Smarter Balance
And now they've
assessment.
switched it to the SATs, thinking that they'll be more
Or
receptive.
compliance, right?
But you have to keep in mind that the SATs are now Common Core aligned, and some schools are giving up on the SATs. It's no longer required.
Right. Many schools, not just some, but
Right.
800, I think. 800 colleges, universities around the
But
country.
there are so many colleges that the number
Right.
that accept it or that look at it far exceeds, so there's still a big tipping point.
Wow.
The other program that we're watching closely is PACE, the Performance Assessment Competency Education. That came into 4 districts, Rochester and 3 others, last year. 4 more districts are picking it up this year. There was a bill in the legislature, House Bill 323 this year, which would have okayed that as a pilot program. Now, a pilot program, you'd go off for a couple years, a district or 2, and come back with results. But their pilot program, they promised in the waiver to the federal government, this is our department that's 85% funded by the government, federal government, wants this pilot program to get all of our districts into it.
Right.
A pilot of 100% of our districts, that's not a pilot, that's opening the door. But the legislature said, no, slow down. They're not doing it. So you've got 4 districts this year that got involved in PACE, and they're not doing the Smarter Balance. They're breaking the law. The law was not changed to reflect what they want to do with this pilot. So by rights, they should have to do the pilot plus the Smarter Balance. But they threw that out because the department said it's okay to break the law.
Because we have other results from other tests. Is that what they're
I
replacing?
have no idea. I think what they're doing with PACE, Smarter Balance is Common Core aligned. So if parents are opting out, the solution is PACE, where you interweave the Common Core testing to the competencies daily, week by week. So if they don't do well, they get to retest their competencies, their Common Core aligned competencies. So opting out really won't do you much good because there won't be a test at the end of the year. It's an incremental progression through
So
the
those
year.
4 towns or 4 cities or
Districts.
4 districts in New Hampshire will not be taking Smarter Balance in the spring.
They didn't last year. They broke the law.
But the parents aren't notified that the students are really getting Smarter Balance testing, except it's weekly instead of one time.
Daily.
It's daily.
They're supposed to get the Smarter Balance from grades 3 to 8, and they get it once in there. Once in the elementary, once in the middle school, and once in the high school. So that's what they're switching to. So instead of 7 times, they're doing it 3 times. So they threw out 4 grades with no legislative authority. Just the department saying that the federal government thinks it's okay. That's not legit. And that's how they're operating. And the parents that I'm hearing feedback from, particularly in Rochester, is saying that if your kid goes in and he's competent right at the beginning, every week you have these retests, and they're sitting there reading books, doing, homework.
Busy work.
Right, because they don't have to retest. They did it the first
They've
time.
met the standard. There's nothing else for you to learn here. The teacher has to go and take care of the ones that are at the bottom and need to be brought up,
Or
correct?
at least proctor or administer the retest and the retest, because every week there's a retest. So every week they can bring in their extra reading.
So if the student's passing the competency, the teacher doesn't have to give that student attention,
Right.
except supervision.
And the problem with this whole program is it wants to get rid of the gaps. So it really doesn't want those kids progressing too fast because then there's a bigger gap. So if you slow them down, the gap shrinks. they just keep working up the bottom and just keep everybody on the same whatever, there's less gaps. Isn't that wonderful? Doesn't meet every student's needs.
No.
But there's no incentive to meet every student's need. If you meet the student's needs and they progress, there's going to be a bigger gap.
That's right. Won't they promote that student to the next grade? Maybe.
You would think, but I don't know how fast they get their competencies. I mean, they're sitting there waiting for the next week's competencies, waiting for the retests. I don't know. The whole system is kind of
So
crazy.
you have students who are bored, perhaps doesn't get the individualized attention to meet his performance level.
They should work out the kinks. If this is such a valuable program and it's completely experimental, they should take those 4 districts and continue with 4 districts being kids being guinea pigs, and not keep expanding it until they know what they're doing. But they don't have any problem with that. Just open the floodgates, because the department has already promised the federal government that all of our districts would implement PACE. They're getting money from No Child Left Behind based on their promise that they're going to make all of our districts compliant with PACE without legislative approval. And I don't see them slowing down. The legislature didn't want to approve it.
So there's a lot to understand here, Doris. I'm not totally sure that
Maybe
I
the
understand it
legislature
all.
should go in there and put a ban. Because unless there's an explicit ban, the department keeps marching forward. Oh, well, we didn't get it approved this year. We'll just keep on doing it. Maybe next year they'll approve what we're already doing. That's how they did with Common Core. They didn't pass the legislature. They didn't pass the school boards. They just brought it in the back door, the commissioner meeting with the superintendents and sending her regional liaisons, putting it into the districts, and then the districts coming to the boards and saying, hey, it's a fait accompli. Look what we've got in our district. We're doing this. It's backwards.
Right. Well,
Undermines parents. It undermines teachers.
I'm sure glad you're the watchdog here.
You're helping. You're helping.
I can be the facilitator to bring you back and explain to the folks at home, but
It's
this is very complex.
It is a team. There's a lot of teachers that are anonymously giving us information. There are parents that are speaking out at school board meetings. We're getting information from all different levels, and we're working as a team. And that's why we were effective this year in stopping the approval of PACE. And as our team grows, and it is growing, because discontent is growing, because parents are in the dark, parents don't like what little they figure out, the team will build, and the opposition will grow.
And folks, if you don't like what your children are bringing home and what they're doing in class, you have a right to say no. You have a right to direct the education of your child. There are parents who come to school board meetings in Manchester and tell what their child is doing or learning, and that they don't like it and that they won't be doing that.
Well, there's 2 levels. You can take and say your child won't be doing that. You have that right. And you can replace it with something else. Or if it's a test, you can say he's not doing that. But if you go to your school board, what you're there lobbying for not only is your child, you're hoping that they will redirect what they're doing in the district. And they did that in Wakefield. They said no Common Core in Wakefield. They did it in Alton. They said no Common Core in Alton. So there are districts where parents are speaking up and are successful. And as more parents come to understand what's happening, there will be more opposition.
Well, there are Facebook pages in Manchester. If you're not already signed up on, let's say, Manchester Parents Against Common Core, there's Manchester School District News and Views. There's Manchester School Chat Uncensored. So there's a lot of Facebook communication with parents and teachers, and some even school board members chime in.
There are pages for school board members to speak out.
And I believe you have a Facebook in Nashua.
Yes, there is Nashua
one.
on Top, I think, is one
Okay.
of them. But there's Common Core pages all over. You just put Common Core in the name of your city or town, and you'll be surprised. And if not, you can create one.
Right, or Americans Against Common Core. Or,
Every state has at least
and
one.
Against Smarter Balanced Assessment.
Right, it's the data mining. There is no privacy anymore. And if it was just academic, parents wouldn't object so much. But when they start asking, how often do you, do this in your house or do that in your house, it becomes invasive.
Right. That's the values, attitudes, beliefs, behaviors that are being measured.
Well, because they believe that they should do workforce training. They're not focused on academics, so they're not going to do well with academics. They need to focus on what they want to do well at. If they're trying to raise the child and change his cultural background, well, good luck with that, but that's not what we're paying the teachers to do. Reading, writing, arithmetic, and those types of things. Not changing Johnny and Susie's beliefs.
Well, that's what's happening.
Well, that we have to let them know that we're aware of it and we're not too happy.
Right. Anyhow, Doris, well, is there anything else that you'd like? We probably have just a couple minutes left.
I think it's going to be an interesting year. I think there's going to be, in the cities, there's a big election on school board members in Rochester, Nashua, Manchester. So we're going to get a lot more representation on these boards. I'm running in Nashua, so and I know that there's other good people running for many of these seats. So I think the dialogue is going to continue to move forward. We're going to include parents, include teachers as best we can, so that we can just not rush to spend so much money on all these programs that are making corporations fat and happy and bankrupting our districts. Our districts don't have the money to keep the schools in good repair and pay the teachers. The money has to go somewhere, and we're spending an inordinate percentage on programs that have no track record. So maybe we need to slow down and start looking at what we're doing before we do more of it.
Are the students graduating and being able to go to community college without having to take remedial classes?
Well, if they focus on academics, they might. But workforce training, I don't understand how figuring out what they do and how they feel about various behavioral issues, that's not going to get them to do well in college.
No, and most kids are not going to college anyway. Anyway, so we're on wrap-up, and so I appreciate you coming by and updating us. I think we need to do that more often with New Hampshire Families for Education, because you get a lot under the bonnet here, more than we can cover in a half hour. So we'll see you next time on Our City Matters. Thank you, Doris.
You're welcome.
Take care.